So why do so many people like Lone Ruin? What does this game do that is so remarkable that has so many people talking about it? Honestly, I would argue it does nothing extraordinary. But before we get into that, I do want to remind you guys to please hit that like and subscribe button. I appreciate it. We're getting really close to 1,000. We're only about 250 away, so I really do appreciate each and every one of you guys. So let's talk about Lone Ruin a little bit. And before anyone gets mad, says that I'm bashing it or I'm getting ready to take the piss out of it or whatever, what I mean is this game doesn't do anything that no other game does, but what it does do, it does very, very well. Lone Ruin strips away a lot of complicated storylines or new mechanics or stuff like that. Just goes bare bones, minimalistic, but tight, fast, responsive gameplay. And that's what I think a lot of people really enjoy about it. Because this game doesn't have a big, long story. In fact, I kind of want a little bit more, to be honest, as your character heads into this Lone Ruin in search of magical power. Didn't really say what the magical power is, it's just your character knows that this supremely powerful magical ability lies within this ruin and you need to get it. And that's it. Like, that's your main goal. That's the main story. As you enter the ruin, you're greeted by a tall, hooded creature, person, being, probably a more accurate term. And being the generous fellow that he is, he offers to give you a spell to start off on. And this spell is very important because you have many options to choose from, each one that will alter the gameplay a little bit. My favorite one has to be the chain lightning. I just had the funnest with it. It gave me the best response as well. There's many options, and each one is really fun to play with and kind of learn how it's going to change your gameplay a little bit. There are some where you want to power it up or you want to move really quickly. Some also have like larger cooldowns than others, and this can kind of affect how you play. Like, if you are more mobile and you're faster on your feet, you probably want to go with one that has a larger cooldown because it's going to do more damage. It's just you're not going to be able to get off as many shots as possible. And I think a lot of people are going to like the fact that there's so many different spells and that each one can alter your gameplay a little bit, or they're more comfortable to certain styles or players. And it offers you different experiences with different loadouts, which is really cool as well. But that's not the only thing that they have. In fact, there's things called blessings that work more like a passive ability, and you can collect a limited amount of them, just like you can with the spells. But the nice thing is you can sell all of them. So if you decide you picked up a passive that you didn't really want as much as another one, you can just up and sell it whenever you want, which is nice. In the same way with the spells as well. And the cool thing too, that while we're talking about the spells, is there's actually more spells that you can discover while you're on your journey, which is kind of a point A, point B linear path where you first enter in a dungeon, enemies are spawned, you're given a little count on how many enemies you gotta fight at the top right corner, and once you get through them, then you're given a path. You can go one of two options usually, and each path will detail the reward for beating the next dungeon. So this kind of gives you a little bit of strategy. Do you want to upgrade your current spell? Do you want a new spell? Do you want to visit a shop? Do you want to get a passive ability? All of this is detailed by a little icon and a quick description of what lies ahead. And it goes into how you can play this game strategically, as you can obviously lean more to your strengths. Now, I haven't actually talked about the strength of this game yet, and that is the gameplay. This game is a spell-based, roguelike twin-stick shooter with amazingly tight controls and incredibly fluid mobility, which is ultimately all you want from these type of games. We are in the middle of some roguelike renaissance right now, where it seems like every other game is a roguelike, and it's cool, and I love the creativity, and I love how there's a lot of games doing a lot of different stuff. But at the end of the day, sometimes you just want a game you can hop into, play like a roguelike or arcade shooter, and be done with it, or play over and over and over again, because that's another strength of this game, is it really relies on the replayability, as it is a roguelike, which I know sounds crazy, but there are some roguelike games that really don't fashion themselves as a game that's strong on replayability, and this obviously is one of its strong points. And this is my whole thoughts with the game. The strength of this game is controls, loadouts, replayability. And that's really it. I mean, you don't really need much more though. And I think that's why a lot of people have been drawn to this game. They don't have to get into anything else besides the fact that it has very quick responsive controls. It moves like butter. It has a lot of different loadout options, but it doesn't mean that you're screwed if you choose the wrong one. You're not backed into a corner where you're gonna ultimately know, this run's already ruined. No, that you just figure out a different way to play if you haven't used that spell before, or that's part of the fun of it. And at the most, you're really not putting much time into each run, which is also very addictive, as this keeps going on to a loop that you want to keep playing over and over again. But I think there's going to be some people who are going to have a problem with the fact that, no, it's not Hades. It's not a game that has a lot of deep storylines, and at least at this point, no later content, or at least not a lot. This game basically has two modes: a survival mode, which has you going against wave after wave of enemy, really testing your ability, and then there's story mode, which is where you defeat different forms of monsters, and then you move on, you have your options on what upgrades to get next, and you eventually fight different bosses. It's essentially a pretty streamlined process, honestly, but getting from point A to point Z is not as easy as you think. It's not a super difficult game, in my opinion. Like, it's very, and I hate using this word, I've used it a lot lately, but it's very obtainable. You can see that when you get beat, it's just because you made the wrong move. It's not because the game kind of cheesed you or something. It's just legitimately fun, and it's challenging, but not too challenging. And that's what I really like about this game, is I didn't at any point feel overwhelmed. Now, on to the other aspect of this game that I think a lot of people have noticed, and it just really pops out, and that's the visual style. It's got like this very almost 80s neon kind of color to it, where it uses a lot of like the magentas and the pastels, but it's all based on the background of a very dark, dreary, gloomy area. And that just really helps all of it pop, including the character themselves, who is done in such a style that they really just stand out and pop off the screen, which is another really cool aspect of this visual style. I will be honest, it's not my favorite, but I do like what they're doing, and I like the creativity that goes into something like this. With that being said, the negative parts for me are the fact that the game, I understand it's all supposed to be taking place in one area, right? So to ask for different biomes would be asking a lot, but it does get a little bit repetitive, not only in the gameplay loop, but also just in visual, like, surroundings. It seems to be like the same levels a lot of times, kind of over and over. Even though it's a different layout, it's just kind of the same background in a lot of ways. And I wish they had, I don't know, kind of mixed things up a little bit. Again, I know that's sort of a big ask because it's supposed to be in one location. Like, you know, you can't go to the beach or something. Like, it just wouldn't make any sense at all. Ooh, now we're in space. You know, yeah, that wouldn't make sense. But I think that like that and a little bit of like tedium might creep in on some people if they're playing this a lot and they're just trying to work on builds and they're trying to really hone in a perfect run. Yeah, I could see like where the loop would be a little bit much, but honestly, for someone like me who can pick up and play this game for a little while, put it down, go back to it, I really love it. I like that aspect of it, and it is a lot of fun. Now, another thing that does kind of bother me, if I'm being 100% honest, is I would like there to be a little bit more option as far as modes, and like, I like the character. I like this world. I want to know more about it, and I hope that they maybe add something else to it, or it gets a sequel or something, just because at the end of the day, this game really had me wanting to immerse myself further in, and I just couldn't. I had already hit depth, you know? Anyway, though, that's just my thoughts on it. I really do enjoy it. I think for the price, it's a good value because of the fact that it does everything that you want it to do, and it does it very, very, very well. Like I said, the fluidity of the movement, the controls are so tight, the different options with the spells, all of that make for a really, really fun, enjoyable experience. That's my thoughts on Lone Ruin. I'm kind of curious what your guys' thoughts are. Have you played it? Is it something you're looking forward to? Also, I'm kind of curious too about a physical copy. I know there's a lot of people in my community here that love the physical copies, and since this is from Super Rare Games, they'll probably release a physical copy, but I doubt it'll be anywhere near $14.99. So I was kind of curious, like, if you would pick it up at a higher price point just to have the physical copy itself, but noting that it would be from Super Rare, so that is actually pretty cool. They always throw in a bunch of little extra goodies, and they're, as you say, super rare. But anyway, that's just my thoughts on it. I'm kind of curious, like I said, what you guys think. All comments down below are much appreciated. Anyway, guys, like always, I'm wishing you health, wealth, and above all, I hope you're truly happy because you make me happy. Take care, everyone. Love ya. Bye-bye.